This is Bryce Reeves, guest host of the John Fredericks show across America, and I'm filling in today for John. He is actually watching his son pitch a no-hitter. Let's hope that. But on the phone and calling in today is probably one of my closest allies, friends, and person that I work with all the time when in the district, and we overlap our districts. But on the phone is my favorite congressman, and Congressman Rob Wittman. Rob, welcome to the program.
Senator, it's great to be with you this morning, Bryce. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, listen, I know you're crisscrossing the district. I don't know if you ever sit down. I've known you, I call you the Forrest Gump of congressmen because, remember Forrest ran across the country. That's Rob Wittman. And, really my saying for you is Rob Wittman's never met a stranger. I've never seen somebody who has endeared qualities that the people just love. And they don't actually call you congressman, which I think you love because they just call you Rob. And before I even got into this business, I met you when I was a chairman, and you actually won the nomination, and that was a long 11-hour day. I'm sure you remember that.
It was.
And but you've done a great job in Congress. You've been chairman of Sea-Power and some of those subcommittees up there in Congress, and you've been able to get things accomplished. Despite all the rhetoric, despite all the hyper-partisanship, you and I had worked on a bill last year that had to deal with our veterans. And you want to talk a little bit about that bill for us this morning?
Sure. Well, Bryce, as you know, you and a number of other folks in the community, Danielle Cortez and others, saw instances where veterans just got sideways with the law, and what we really needed for them was just an opportunity for them to get themselves back together and not have to be just buried by the criminal justice system. And listen, we know veterans and the things that they've done, the training that they've gone through, and know that they have what it takes to be successful. Sometimes, like lots of folks, they just have challenges in their life, and much like somebody that's suffering from substance abuse, just needs the opportunity to be able to get things together. And the problem is the court system didn't have the ability to accommodate that. And what you and others did was to look at it and say, why don't we use the same model as we use for drug courts, where we give an individual an opportunity to address the issues that they have. And we know that veterans are uniquely suited to be given that opportunity because they've shown what they can do. They've gone through military training. They've operated a military unit. We know that they have experienced the structure of what's necessary to be successful. We know that they can do that if given the opportunity. And sometimes it's just a matter of kind of a wake-up call there. And we know, too, that many times the things they're dealing with are brought on by their service. And we know that if they're mentored by somebody that is a veteran, many times it's just that little bit of extra effort that gets them back on track. So anyway, that's what we were able to do, is to say, well, let's put this in a form of legislation at the national level so we actually have it available in every state.
Well, speaking of mentors, he happened to be listening this morning and actually just called into the show, and you mentioned his name. And on the phone, we have Daniel Cortez. Daniel, are you available on the phone?
I am. How are you, Bryce?
I'm doing well, sir, and good morning to you, Marine. And you've got Rob Wittman on the phone as well, and I want to thank you for the work you've done to help pass that Veterans Treatment Coordination Act and all the work that many of us who have worn the cloth of the country done. And I want to thank you this morning, and thanks for calling in. What say you?
Well, listen, Bryce, it is I who need to thank you and our great 1st District Congressman, Rob Wittman, who co-sponsored the bill with Congressman Charlie Crist. Last year, you were there, we met with the White House representatives, and we met with the Congress thanks to the loyal supporter of veterans. I can't think of a finer congressman that supports veterans than Rob Wittman. The bill would not have been passed. It was signed Saturday by the president. And as the chairman of the National Vet Court Alliance, I am proud for veterans, and we know who got it done. You were there in the trenches with us, Bryce Reeves, Congressman Wittman. I salute you, and we can't thank you enough.
Well, Danielle,
thank you.
Yeah, likewise, and Daniel, listen, one of the things people don't know about you, and I don't mind saying this, but you and I worked with a great judge in Spotsylvania County, Rick Regal, and Rick's a former Marine as well. But not only did you help get the bill passed, you're one of the mentors, and since I got you on the phone, I got the congressman on the phone at the same time. Tell us a little bit about the mentorship aspect. I know Rob's heard the story, but for those folks that are listening, what that is and why we need more mentors a little bit. And then, I think it was a Navy guy, NCO that you were mentoring as well, and where is he today and what's going on?
Well, Liam Antonori was the young sailor that I mentored, and we have a number of veterans that are going through the program, and these veterans are getting a second chance because of the compassionate actions of great veterans themselves, like Judge Ricardo Regal, who runs the Rappahannock Veterans Treatment Court. And I am one of the mentors, and it's a team effort. The judges must get all the credit. The judges are the compassionate individuals. We are part of the support team. And these veterans suffer from PTSD and traumatic brain injuries. Well, as a Vietnam veteran, a wounded Vietnam veteran myself, I've been there. I understand. And we reach out to them, but nothing happens without these great judges like Judge Ricardo Regal and Kelly Hale, who is the Veterans Docket Administrator, Eric Olson, who was part of our team, as you know, the Stafford County Commonwealth's Attorney. And we're all in this thing together to help these veterans get a second chance. The bill was the second step to the President's First Step Act that he passed in 2018, but this is all about veterans. And, Rob Wittman said it's the first swipe of the apple, funding-wise. Right. And we're going back, and Rob's going to be helping us. And we ask your listeners to help the National Vet Court Alliance. Go to the nationalvetcourtalliance.com. We could use donations that go directly to the Veterans Court, to a Veterans Docket, to help Ricardo Regal and these veterans. But you deserve so much of the credit. Congressman Wittman, we cannot thank you enough. We do need mentors, so we hope you'll go to our website and contact us directly.
Well, Daniel, thank you. Thank you for your service, your sacrifice, your family's sacrifice. Thank you for calling in today. And well, welcome back to the John Fredericks Show. I'm your guest host, Senator Bryce Reeves, and on the hotline is my favorite congressman from the 1st District, Congressman Rob Wittman. Rob, we were just talking about the Veterans Treatment Court bill that you helped work across the aisle with Charlie Crist out of Florida. You got the bill passed. We just got to work on the funding. The President signed that bill last Saturday. So, you don't hear of all the great stuff that you guys are actually working on. All we hear about is all the bad stuff and what the other media outlets want to portray. But listen, it's going to be a tough election year. President's election years are always interesting. Vice President Biden just chose his running mate, and it's the first African-American woman to be in that position, and Avella talked about that briefly in the segment before you. But let's talk about your race in the first a little bit. How do you see that shaping up?
Well, listen, it's going to be a competitive race, and everybody looks at it and says, "Oh, you don't have anything to worry about." Well,
sure.
we want to make sure that we leave nothing to chance, and my opponent has been very aggressive. My opponent is on the complete opposite end of the political spectrum from myself.
Sure,
he is a as far to the left as you can be, and what we're looking at is just contrasting where we stand on critical positions on issues, and the things that we have done and the things that I believe are still yet to be done. Bryce, I think elections are about several things. I think they're about, what you have been able to accomplish, and as you talked so in depth about the Veterans Court as well as other things, but also, what are the visions going forward? There's still things that need to be done, and that's the reason I'm asking for folks to send me back to Washington. So,
Well, you certainly get stuff
we're
done. I mean, that's apparent. You get bills passed, and that's incredible.
well, and that's the key. And even in this divided political environment, to be able to get that done in a bipartisan way, I think says something. So, that's what we are working on. As I said, my opponent and I are on the complete opposite ends of the political spectrum. I mean, where he stands on issues is completely different than from where I stand on issues. I mean, he's in favor of the Green New Deal, trillions of dollars of additional costs there, impact on working families, and as far as their daily lives. The same with health care. He wants to take away your private insurance. He wants to have government-run health care, and he wants to, with that, also affect those folks that are currently on Medicare. He wants this Medicare for all. So
sure.
Some very, very different positions. So listen, we'll have an opportunity to debate that. I think that there'll be a record turnout in this election. So that's what we're doing right now. In fact, I'll be out this afternoon knocking on doors up in Fredericksburg, up in your area of the district, and talking to folks about the things that are critical in this election cycle. So we are, very willing and wanting to put our record out there to say this is what we stand for and where we are in relation to getting things done for the nation. And as you pointed out, one of the other areas too that's incredibly important is making sure that we are modernizing our military. And we see what our adversaries are doing, Bryce, and they are doing unbelievable things, especially our near-peer adversaries like China and Russia. So we have to be prepared for that. And then looking at what we're facing with COVID-19, another element that's critically important was I'll be out traveling again today talking to folks, and that is building a system of broadband to where we can reach everybody. I mean, we see many schools are deciding to go into virtual instructions to start the school year, and there are still areas in these counties that don't have broadband coverage. And, of course, the schools are trying to put in temporary Wi-Fi hotspots, but even with that, I think it's going to be a problem. So we've been advocating to get dollars quickly mobilized, and there's some very creative ways that we're working on getting those things done. But lots of things yet to do, but lots of opportunities. Even with the division that we see in our nation today, Bryce, I still think that there are many things that bring all of us together and things that need to get done if we can look past these divisions. And listen, that is certainly a challenge these days, but not one that I think is insurmountable.
Well, Rob, I wholeheartedly agree with you, and I know Catherine's a teacher, and I know,
Yes.
Your family's involved in all of that. And, I share the same concerns. We share the same district. And in my conversations with David Avella today, he did mention healthcare is still one of the number one issues. But we talked, about trying to make people's lives easier, better, and safer. And, on the safer part, when we talk about our military, I know Secretary Espers is kind of taking the reins, and now they're looking at modernizing our Navy, as you talked about, and some of that funding. How is that outlook looking? I know you represent all the way down to Norfolk, and those folks in the shipbuilding industry, and our 30 military installations in the Commonwealth is a huge economic impact. How do you see a future BRAC? How do you see the modernization of the Navy as you help oversee that from Washington? Talk a little bit about that. I think some people don't realize you're not just a politician. You actually get stuff done, and it's about looking at those things.
Well, it is, Bryce, and luckily this year there was not even an attempt to do a BRAC, which is a Base Realignment Commission, and I think folks understand that getting what we're doing right, it has to be the first step, and if we can find efficiencies after that, then we can look at those things. But looking at base realignment right now is not the thing to do. One of the things that we were able to achieve this year is to add an additional submarine to the budget. That is the construction of a submarine to the budget. So we will be building 2 Virginia-class submarines, and we know that if you do serial production on ships, it brings down the cost. Plus, we need those submarines. Our Los Angeles class attack submarines are retiring.
Right.
Unfortunately, we will be down to a total of 42 submarines where we need to be at 55. The submarine still gives us massive undersea strike advantage. It is the most often requested asset by the combatant commanders, so we were able to get that done. And again, the good thing about it is on armed services, it is still one of the most bipartisan committees on Capitol Hill. My counterpart, Joe Courtney, is the chairman of the committee this year, and he and I worked well together in both roles. My role this year is a ranking member, my previous role as chairman, so we've been able to get a significant amount of things done. Also, making sure that we are working on getting unmanned surface ships into the Navy. We know unmanned systems are critically important, but we want to make sure we get it done right. We don't want to build a bunch of ships and then find out those aren't the things that we need. And it's one thing to do a one-off testing of a ship, which they've done with these large surface combatants, unmanned surface combatants. But now the question is how do you integrate them into fleet operations? How do you use them? Where do they work well? Where don't they work well? Let's figure that out first before we go building hundreds of these things and then end up saying, well, gosh, that didn't work. And unfortunately, we've seen examples of that in the military in the past. So we're doing that, and plus two, getting our fleet of tankers correct. One of the most important strategic assets are air refueling tankers, and the KC-46A, a great aircraft. Unfortunately, it's had a myriad of problems, including the visioning system it uses to refuel, including unacceptable amounts of foreign object debris in the aircraft. You know, when you build an aircraft, you're supposed to clean it up and not leave a bunch of, foreign object debris there.
Sure.
Yeah, and then we've had leaking fuel tanks. It's kind of a good idea for aircraft carrying fuel not to leak it. So anyway, we pared back on the minimum number allowed to be built this year until Boeing can show that they can get all these things right. And listen, I think they will, but it has to be based upon performance, not just based on saying that they'll do the right thing. So those are some things that we were able to get through this year in the NDAA from the Sea Power Projection Forces Subcommittee.
Well, I can't thank you enough, as the guy that runs the Military Veterans Caucus and the part of that, the co-chair of that in the General Assembly, and what that means to all those. I was actually at a change of command ceremony at Fort Belvoir. Major General Jones was there, commander of the Military District of Washington, that whole National Capital Region, and spoke a little bit about those things. But listen, switching a little bit of topics, but it's about money, and I think we got about 2 minutes left before we have to take a hard break. Okay. Where are we on the stimulus package? You guys are out for recess, and let me tell the listeners, recess doesn't mean Rob goes home and gets to chill out and cut his lawn. He has a race this year, and Rob never slows down, and when it's recess, he's still on Capitol Hill. But for the most part, the speaker hasn't come back, and they haven't found agreement. Where are we on the stimulus package?
Well, they're still in discussions. As you know, there was a bill that passed out of the House, which I was opposed to, a $3+ trillion bill that had so many of these elements that the Democrats wanted to put in. It was kind of their wish list bill. It really wasn't a serious attempt to get at these issues. So there's still discussion, I think, in the Senate side as well as the administration. As you know, the president has done some things via executive order, which I would prefer not to have happen that way. But the president said, hey, listen, if Congress doesn't act, I will. So I think that those things are critical to get done. People are looking for those elements. In fact, I'll be out today talking to businesses that relied on the payroll protection plan, families, too, that rely on this help as we're getting things back underway. So, listen, Congress needs to get things done, Bryce. And one of the things that I have done through the years is and I did it again this year, is to object to the leadership allowing the House to go home with things left undone. It just makes no sense to go home for 5 weeks. It's an artifact of the past. There's no reason for the Congress to leave now. No. We got air conditioning.
Well, you're getting paid full-time salaries, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like our $18,000, right?
That's right, exactly. Well, listen, it's great to go back home and visit and talk with folks, and I love that. But people expect us to get things done, which means leadership needs to keep us in Washington.
Well, I couldn't agree more. Rob, how do people get in? How do they contact you? How do they help you during your election? And real quick, give us a plug, your website.
Sure. The website is wittman.house.gov. That's wittman.house.gov. They can call us at 202-225-4261.